Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Yee-Haw, a Bonanza podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and today we are watching Season 1, Episode 18, A House Divided, a very soap opera-y episode of Bonanza. Excited to talk about this one, but before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you guys know, starting next Saturday, which I believe is the 15th of March? The 15th of March through the 22nd, I am going to be out of town. So I'm going to do my best to get episode 19 out before I leave, or scheduling it for the following Monday. I don't know yet. I have a very busy schedule ahead of me for this week, getting ready for my trip. I got to get some things in order. So there might be a delay, there might not. I don't know yet. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. I hope you guys are having a great day today at the time of recording this. It is Sunday, March 9th. I'm having a pretty good day myself. You know, the time change is killing me a little bit. Just not as bad as in years past, but you know, where you sacrifice sleep, you gain an hour in the evening. And you know what? I think that is worth the sacrifice. I also sliced my finger open earlier this week with a potato peeler because apparently I don't know the difference between a potato and my own finger. So that was fun. Spent some time in the ER, but it's all good. Got to get these sutures out next week, but that was a little mishap I had earlier this week on Tuesday or Wednesday. Can't quite remember. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you guys with the details of my life. We're going to watch episode 18, A House Divided. So let's read the episode details and get started. Okay, so A House Divided. This episode was written by Al C. Ward, David Dortort, and Fred Hamilton. It was directed by Lewis Allen. It premiered January 16th, 1960. Its special guest of the week was Cameron Mitchell, but it also starred Stacy Harris, John Anderson, Marianne, Stewart, Howard Wendell, and Dan Riss. The episode description is: Ben tries to uncover the reason gold and silver exporter, Frederick Kyle, has befriended Little Joe before the shadowy businessman's hidden Civil War agenda tears Virginia City and the Cartwright family apart. Ooh, drama and intrigue. As always, guys, if you are watching this episode on YouTube today, please do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel before you leave. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, if you would please consider writing me a positive review, I would truly appreciate it. And as always, if you want to have any of your thoughts on these Bonanza episodes read on the show, you can email me at yeehawbonanzapod@gmail.com. Okay, so like I said, Cameron Mitchell is the guest star this week. He plays the very shady Frederick Kyle. Some fun facts on him: he served as a bombardier in the Air Force during World War II. Much like my grandfather was a bombardier in World War II, so they have that in common. Cameron Mitchell is most famous for his role as Buck Cannon on The High Chaparral, which came out in 1967. Oddly enough, that is another David Dortort series. I have not seen The High Chaparral, so I don't really have a frame of reference. I know the theme song, which also, weirdly enough, was written by David Rose, the composer for the Bonanza theme as well. The High Chaparral is definitely on my list of things to watch, but I have no frame of reference for it. So maybe when I get done with this episode, I'll have to check out some clips from the series just so I know what I'm talking about. And Cameron Mitchell was 41 when he appeared in this Bonanza episode, but they made him up to look old, quote, end quote. He did look very heavy in the old makeup in this episode. And, of course, if you didn't already know, the title of this episode, A House Divided, is based on Abraham Lincoln's famous House Divided speech, which he gave on June 16th, 1858 in Springfield, Illinois. So there's your frame of reference for this episode. I have so many thoughts on the topic or the theme in this episode, but we'll save that for the end. As far as the box set goes, they had an episodic promo, and then they had a couple of pictures of behind the scenes of the cast in the saloon. You have some pictures of Michael Landon and Cameron Mitchell sitting at the table talking about the picture of Little Joe's mother, which is a really weird plot point in this episode I want to discuss. There are also some gorgeous pictures of Pernell Roberts sitting at the table when he confronts the two shady gentlemen at the table. More pictures of Cameron Mitchell and Michael Landon from the opening scene. And then I can't remember who this guy is. There's a really cute photo of Dan Blocker lifting. I think it's one of the guys, like one of the thugs that work for Frederick Kyle. Like he's lifting him and the guy's laughing. It's a very, very cute photo. And then there's a great picture of Lorne Greene smoking a cigarette in between takes. And he's just like leaning up against the saloon bar and he's got a cigarette in his mouth. God, it's so funny. I don't know why it cracks me up. Smoking was such a staple of the time, and it's just so funny how our culture has shifted to be so against it. It was such a stature thing back then. Anyway, that is all that was on the box set. So pull up the episode and let's see what A House Divided has in store for us. Okay, we are hitting play in 3, 2, 1, go. Bonanza. It's such a good theme song. Oh my gosh. Maybe I should have checked out a clip of the High Chaparral before watching this. Oh well. I'll do it after. I'll report back with my findings. I have so many questions about how he obtained all this information. By the way, Joseph Francis Cartwright, that rolls off the tongue beautifully. I know many Josephs in my family. We have a lot of Josephs in my family. But the name Joseph Francis Cartwright, that rolls off the tongue quite nicely. They put so much makeup on Cameron Mitchell's face. You know, they painted his hair to look super gray, and if you look, you can see the blush and the contours to brighten up his face. But that's what happens when you watch Bonanza with 2025 picture quality. I love how you can so clearly see his other arm in that shot. There's a couple moments in this episode where you can clearly see Cameron Mitchell's other hand hidden by the jacket. It's funny. This is random, but Michael Landon had extremely expressive eyebrows. They were characters of their own. The way they furrow and twist when he smiles. That might sound weird, but I am an artist, so I notice these things. Like the shapes and expressions and like what kind of shape somebody's head is, and I don't know, maybe I'm not making any sense. Is he though? Let's be real. Is he? I'm not sure the episode knows that. No, after. I feel like a narrator should come over and go, "A house divided." Like just an old timey narrator. Oh, they're really dragging little Joe through the mud here. Oh, little Joe doesn't know how to handle money. Little Joe is such a little kid. So he's like, little Joe is southern, Adam is northern, and I'm a mix of both, I guess. Hmm. Look, I'm not saying that this episode doesn't have some interesting concepts in it. I think this story got kind of messy really quick. Because they're dealing with a pretty intense part in American history, and that's the Civil War, which was over slavery, state rights, and then the election of Abraham Lincoln, like all super controversial topics. And I feel like this episode just tried to do too much. Like with those ideas. I just love how casually Ben's smoking here. I don't know why it makes me LOL. Also, Adam's wearing his all black garb here. An early taste of his final uh, character outfit. So, with the topic of this episode, it implies that the year is 1858, since that's the year that Lincoln gave his famous House Divided speech. But Bonanza was never consistent with the time period it took place in because it would jump all over between the 1850s to the 1870s. Like they bring up other historical events in future episodes that just don't line up with the timeline. And I guess that's a minor nitpick, but it makes me chuckle. It's like they didn't care. They're like, oh, we want to cover this historical event, but technically it would have happened 7 years later. The writers weren't too concerned with that, I guess. I love the patriotic music in the background. House divided against itself cannot stand. Is that guy seriously so stupid he couldn't understand what that meant? So blinded by personal belief that hate creeps in. That's very relevant. Hmm. I mean, there are some really good and interesting conversational ideas in this episode. And I think it starts off in a pretty interesting way. And then I think the longer the episode goes on, the messier it gets. Like, political hatred is and how it can consume somebody is a really interesting topic. But then I think it gets muddled down by Frederick's character, his relationship to his wife, his knowledge of Little Joe, his knowledge of Little Joe's mother, the accidental killing. I don't know. Like, I don't have a problem with the topic so much. I have a problem with the way that they chose to approach it. I just think they could have taken a different angle with it and made interesting observations on like the hatred of that time and how it is still relevant in modern day. And obviously, like, the modern day of that time would have been like what was going on in the 60s, because the 60s was a very tumultuous time. There's a lot of dark stuff going on there. And even now. So it's like it's a relevant theme that crosses generations. And I think that they could have done better with the direction in this one, in terms of what they could have focused on. Now, these guys, I forget their names after about like 2 minutes. So they're just Muppet 1 and Muppet 2 to me. Muppet Thug 1 and Muppet Thug 2. Oh my God. His hand was so visible there. It's like they didn't even try in some scenes. Oh, bless. And there was his hand again. Gosh, that's funny. That's really, really funny. Well, fun fact about Lincoln's speech in Springfield. Apparently, his friends thought his speech was way too radical at the time, which is fascinating. Muppet Thug 1 and Muppet Thug 2 giving perfect exposition for Adam to overhear. Parental mode activated. Defensive mode activated. Adam is so protective over the family. I will never shut up about this. I love it so much. He's like the family's protector. I love how Adam just threw himself into the mix too. He's like, what does he want with Joe? He's like, I'm not gonna be walked all over. And he literally was like, I don't like you to their faces. He's like, don't mess with my little brother, or I'm gonna be a problem for you. Oh God, I love him so much. So protective of the family. There's a lot more babying of little Joe in the earlier seasons, I've noticed. Like they treat him like he's so young. I guess I forgot about that. Regis and Gorman. Regis and Kelly. That's what I'm going to call that. Regis and Gorman, but it's Kelly. Oh, little Joe, but it is not strictly business. Okay, and now we have introduced maybe the most interesting plot point of all in this episode. Okay, we need to break this down. Number 1, how well did Marie know Mr. Kyle, and how well did Mr. Kyle know Marie? Because a woman just doesn't give her picture to a guy unless, of course, she's romantically involved or that relationship was way beyond than just a typical friendship. That's super strange. On top of that, from what I remember, Marie's character kind of has a shady past. I haven't seen the episode on her backstory with Ben in a while. And I haven't seen the episode in a while that introduces little Joe's, spoiler alert, half-brother. But from what I remember, she was a morally questionable woman. So I'm why is that alarm not going off in little Joe's head? Why the heck do you have a picture of my mother? I don't know. Just very, very strange. Very, very, very strange. I have many questions. Also, could it just be a matter of they didn't have Marie's backstory figured out yet? Because that's probably the most likely case, is the writers still quite didn't know what was going on with the mothers, who they were as individual characters. So it could just be a matter of stuff doesn't line up in season 1 as it would line up in, say, season 4 or season 5, which is fine. I'm just saying it's a little bizarre. That's all. She speaks in quiet whispers. It's so lovely. So soft-spoken. She's just got like such a lovely way of speaking. Ben, you flatterer. Aw. And again, we have another theme here of politics pulling families apart. In this case, actually, like, killing one of her family members. But again, I just think it's so loosely done here. His painted hair is so ridiculous. She didn't even get to take a sip of her coffee. There's nothing I dislike more than when characters are served food or drink and they don't touch it. You can immediately see Ben's anger come through. Like that reaction that Ben has here, he immediately shuts this down. Is it because of Marie's shady past? Like, he got defensive over that. Which also begs the question, how much does little Joe actually know about his biological mother? Like, are there things that Ben didn't tell him about Marie? But the episode never answers this. It just poses more questions than it answers. And maybe this episode would have been better served if it was parts 1 and 2. But I feel like by the time we get to the end of this story, it's like you have so many more unanswered questions than answered questions. So they broke up because of their differing political opinions. I mean, again, the Civil War was, as far as I know, that's like considered one of the bloodiest wars in American history. And one of the major issues of that war was slavery. So I feel like I don't know. I feel like it is such a complicated topic that it's almost too complicated that to try to break it down as simplistically as this episode is attempting to do just does not work. Oh, I know who this actress. This actress reminds me of oh, what is her name? She's in so many shows. It's Joyce Van Patten, I think is her name. She reminds me of Joyce Van Patten a lot. Well, hmm. Hmm. One other thing in this episode. This episode feels confused on whether Kyle is a good guy or a bad guy. Like they're trying to make him out to be this very sympathetic character because of his relationship with his wife and how it fell apart because he's a Southern sympathizer and she has a Northern senator father who's fighting for the Northern cause. It's just. And then he has Muppet Thug 1 and Muppet Thug 2 go and attempt to, or not even attempt, go and commit murder. And his wife just happens to be involved in that. And we're supposed to feel sympathy for Kyle. It's just, I felt like the episode kept going back and forth on how they wanted us to feel about Frederick Kyle's character. And even at the end, it still feels like they don't know. Cool little prop there that they destroyed. Look at how they're both glancing in the opposite direction. Now, I think from this point out, the episode makes a shift to Adam and Little Joe and their conflict over Frederick Kyle. But the switch feels extremely abrupt given what we've watched so far. I didn't even realize Haas was in that scene until they cut to him. Yeah, come on, both of you. Another interesting character contrast between Adam and Little Joe. Little Joe is very trusting. Adam is extremely distrusting, which explains their upbringing. It's very interesting. You know, Adam grew up having a lot of distrust in people because he had so much change in his life. Constantly, people were walking in and out of his life. Had a very rough upbringing. Watched two mothers die. And then Little Joe grew up trusting because, you know, assuming like Ben, Adam, and Haas did their best to create like this warm, kind environment for Little Joe, it makes sense that his character leans more into people. He's a little bit more warm and open. I love that character contrast between them. I just love the differences in Adam and Little Joe and their approaches to the world. How are these two guys so untalented in defending themselves that a guy with one arm can beat them up easily? Okay, interesting scene. But he did cause this, so I don't feel bad for you, Mr. Kyle. Oh, wow, look, we have a sheriff. Oh, that escalated quickly. Like the last 15 minutes of this episode. Aw, look at cozy little Ben in his little bed. Ben wakes up like how my mom does when I come to wake her up. Like, that's dramatic. They had one disagreement about Mr. Kyle, and then Joe is so dramatic that he's like, I've got to go stay in town. And then Adam's like, I have to leave home. And then this is where we get So soap opera. Now, that dialogue would have been great if Joe and Adam had a major fight and started screaming at each other and started saying things that the other person didn't mean. Like that would help this little outburst from Adam if they had showed us that Joe and Adam had a huge fight over this issue. Like, the episode didn't earn this conflict between Adam and Little Joe. I'm sorry. You can't have two different points of view in the same household. It just won't work. What? I just it's a little cheesy. Little cheesy dialogue there. A bit too on the nose, and then you have Haas going, "You know what Mr. Lincoln said about a house being divided against itself cannot stand." It's a little too self-aware. And again, it's like, it's not a bad idea of a theme for an episode. Hatred blinding you to the point where you are willing to sacrifice your loved ones for a political cause is a really interesting theme and a relevant topic to talk about. But the problem is the episode doesn't start out with that focus between Adam and Little Joe, because they try to make it about how Adam and Joe start getting separated. But I think too much of the focus was put on Kyle and his woes, that when we get to this supposed conflict between Joe and Adam, it's not an earned conflict. So it just comes off a little ridiculous at the end. Ben Cartwright has got to do his dad Ben Cartwright thing. And I don't really understand. Never mind. Ugh. Like, it's the only reason that Joe's helping Kyle is because Kyle had a picture of his mother. Ben is being classic Ben right now. I like that line from Ben. You know what I would have liked if Kyle was so consumed by his own hatred for, let's say, like the North, right? That he was willing to sacrifice his own wife for it. It's like you almost should have shown his character poisoning Little Joe's mind. You know, like Joe and Adam starting off having this like they're very respectful of each other, and then Kyle slowly like starts to poison like Joe's mind, and he's like, you know, your brother supports this, your brother supports that, and you know, and maybe Adam is trying to stop Kyle from getting to Little Joe, but Little Joe's like, you just don't understand, and then it very quickly turns into a political issue, and they try to do that to an extent in this episode, but they needed to show Kyle like really getting between Adam and Joe, like intentionally trying to turn Adam and Joe against each other, like really, really trying to pull Joe into his cause. And I think the best way you could have done that is really made Kyle out to be like this morally, you know, bad person, like somebody who's so tormented and full of his own hatred that he starts passing on that hatred to others. And then you could have created a really interesting story about that. But here, like, Kyle just exits, and then we're done with him? I don't know. Like, we don't even get, like, a resolution on his character and this whole issue of him trying to turn these people over to his cause and, like, giving him money so he can support the Southern cause. And also, we never get an explanation why Kyle was looking for Joe. Except for maybe the fact that, like, he wanted to get the Cartwrights on his side to help support his cause. I don't know. There's just so many loose ends. So many loose ends in this story. You know, there's a future episode. I think it's season 4. It's either season 3 or 4. It's called The War Comes to Washoe. It kind of has a similar theme, and I think that episode did it a little bit better. Okay, but can we talk about how Adam basically waited for Joe to come get him? That is really cute. Like, he went so slow because a part of his mind, like, really wanted Joe to come after him. That's so sweet. I love that. A silent, we forgive each other. Oh, I just wanted this episode to be more about Joe and Adam. And for all the plot holes in this story, this tiny little moment makes up for a short part of it. Ugh. So cute. That definitely uplifts the episode slightly for me. Oh boy. Well, I think I expressed a lot of my concerns and qualms with this episode throughout today's reaction / breakdown. Yeah, I wanted it to be more about Joe and Adam. I think they needed to not complicate this as much as they complicated it. I think it should have been Frederick coming between Joe and Adam and quietly turning Joe against Adam, and Adam like trying to go out of his way to like be like, hey, Kyle's not a good person. He's not a good influence, and trying to get Joe to see that. But then Joe and Adam start turning against each other in the middle of this political upheaval. Okay, so obviously the whole theme of this episode is are you willing to sacrifice your family and your relationships for the sake of your cause? Which is a good theme. I just don't think they approached it in the best way. I think the Civil War is a very complicated topic with a lot of issues going on in it. And I think that this episode tried to take like a very basic approach to a very complicated issue, and I don't think it worked that well. I think it was like a relevant theme, the danger of letting politics blind you to the point of hatred. I am a little annoyed they brought Kyle in and tried to make it more about him and his character as opposed to the relationship between Joe and Adam. That's probably the biggest aspect of this episode that annoyed me. Cameron Mitchell was good, but his character was extremely confusing. In the beginning, you have Muppet Man 1 and Muppet Man 2 mention that, oh, he's one-armed trouble, and they give us, the audience, impression that Kyle's like a really, really bad guy. And then later at the end of the episode, the writing is like, nah, he's just a sad, pathetic man. And it almost felt like the episode didn't know who they wanted his character to be. Like, was he like stoking the flames? Was he just like a pathetic guy that was just like a casual nuisance? Was he evil? Was he I don't know. I feel like the episode didn't know who they wanted his character to be or why we should care about his woes. I mean, Kyle was being a horrible person anyway, and he caused his wife's death. And like, look, maybe that's the point, is that his character is sad and pathetic, and he was willing to sacrifice his family for the sake of his cause, and now he's a sad, pathetic man. I just don't love the approach that they took to it. And then he just kind of walks out at the end, and we don't really get like a resolution with his character. And I feel like had you made this episode about the Joe, Adam, and Kyle conflict, and Joe and Adam are really turning against each other, what should have happened is you should have had like a final confrontation with Kyle, Joe, and Adam in a room, I don't know, arguing about ideas or something. And then Adam and Joe come to forgive each other like in this moment. And then Kyle gets mad and like storms out, still consumed by his hatred. I don't know. Maybe it's just personal preference, but I don't love the way that they approached this story. I could probably write an essay, but it's whatever. I will say Purnell was being a little too theatery in the end for me. like I feel like the dialogue at the end where Adam is dramatically leaving the household and Ben and Hoss are chasing after them, and then they start talking about the house divided speech after Adam leaves. Like, I feel like the dialogue there was not great. I think it was poorly constructed. I wasn't a big fan of the line, "You can't have two differing opinions and live in the same household." It's like, what? I don't know. It felt like a kindergartner perspective of a differing of opinion. So I wasn't crazy about the way that was written. I wasn't crazy about the way that Purnell delivered some of those lines, but it's whatever. It's fine. My favorite scene is, I love the moment where Joe goes to get Adam. Was that moment earned? I would argue it wasn't earned. However, it was very, very nice because it implies that Adam was waiting for Joe to catch up to him. And that was just like a nice final unspoken moment between the brothers. It would have been nice had we got into a climax where that scene felt really earned, but it's fine. My least favorite aspect of this episode is the amount of loose ends. What happened to Kyle and his whole little plan of getting people to sign contracts so he could support the South? What happened to the Muppety henchmen? The episode kind of implies that they're going to get arrested, but they never really fully answer that question. What about the town getting riled up about the Civil War issue? What about the fact that Kyle had a picture of Little Joe's mother, which is so weird? I feel like this episode just raised way more questions than answered them. And I feel like that contributes to its weakness, because by the time we get to the end, we should have some resolution. We shouldn't have more questions unless, of course, this episode was going to be a part 1 and 2. If I were to sum this all up, I would say I really wanted this to be more about the Joe and Adam conflict. I feel like they had the opportunity to do something really interesting here and they just missed it. When dealing with an interesting topic such as this episode tried to present, it should have been a 2-parter, because I didn't find that ending satisfying at all. It was like, well, now it's resolved, even though it's not really resolved. And we never really find out Joe and Adam's opinions on the issues of the North and South. They just got angry at each other because they had differing opinions on Mr. Kyle and what his motivations were. It was less of an issue about the North and South, and it was more of an issue of I trust Kyle and I don't trust Kyle. Anyway, if I had to rank this one, I'd say, meh, it's fine. It's not super memorable. They had the opportunity to do something cool, and I don't feel like they took the opportunity. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. What's your opinion on this episode? I'd have to say it's a downgrade from Jack Lord's episode of Bonanza last week, but hey, that was Jack Lord, so naturally I'm going to praise the heck out of that one. But let me know what you think of this episode, A House Divided. What do you think the story of this episode was? Did you like the way that they approached it? Did you not like it? What did you think of the character of Kyle? Did you want to see little Joe and Adam pushed more against each other? What did you think about the inclusion of the Civil War issue? Do you think it made the episode messier than it needed to be? I would love to know all of your thoughts. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please drop a comment and let me know. I love reading and talking about everything that you guys think about these episodes. And of course, if you want to have your thoughts read on the show, you can email me at yeehawbonanzapod@gmail.com with any thoughts or questions. Next week's episode is episode 19, and it is The Gunman, which is about two men who conveniently look like Hoss and Little Joe going around causing trouble. A Bonanza-themed episode that was quite frequent in this series. In the meantime, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this episode, guys, and I will see you next week when we watch The Gunman. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you later.